My name is Chris Smith. I'm a chairman of the Subcommittee on Global Human Rights, Global Health, and International Organizations of the Foreign Affairs Committee. I represent a district in New Jersey. I'm now currently serving in my 44th year as a member of Congress and focus very aggressively on human rights abuse around the world. I'm the author of many human rights laws, including the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000 and 4 subsequent anti-human trafficking laws, as well as 4 laws on religious freedom and many other laws that deal with democracy and human rights. Since late 2022, Brazilians have been subject to human rights violations committed by Brazilian officials on a very large scale. Documented or credibly reported rights violations in Brazil include the political abuse of legal procedures to persecute political opposition, including jailing opposition figures on spurious charges, violations of freedom of speech and media freedom, including persecution of journalists, the silencing of opposition media, the banning of individuals from social media, thinly veiled censorship laws claiming to fight so-called disinformation, and many violations of the rule of law and judicial malfeasance. Already in December of 2022, Mary O'Grady, who writes a weekly column on Latin America for the Wall Street Journal, noted the danger, and she said, and I quote her in part, "A greater threat is the 11-member Supreme Court, which is overstepping its jurisdiction and flouting the rule of law for political reasons without consequences. When the highest court becomes an ally of ideological and corrupt politicians, democracy is in grave danger. Brazil has arrived at such a moment," she goes on. "The court censored other political speech from business leaders, elected members of Congress, and news and entertainment platforms on the right. This has been carried out with assistance from Electoral Tribunal's Special Advisory to combat disinformation. It acts as a ministry of truth," so-called. In January of 2023, even the New York Times reported, referring to Brazilian Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes, quote, "Using a broad interpretation of the court's powers, he has pushed to investigate and prosecute, as well as to silence on social media, anyone who he deems a menace to Brazil's institutions. He has jailed people without trial for posting threats on social media, helps sentence a sitting congressman to nearly 9 years in prison for threatening the court, ordered raids on businessmen with little evidence of wrongdoing, suspended an elected governor from his job, and unilaterally blocked dozens of accounts and thousands of posts on social media with virtually no transparency or room for appeal. In the hunt for justice after the riot this month," he went on, or the New York Times went on, he has become further emboldened. His orders to ban prominent voices online have proliferated," close quote. That's the New York Times. Many Brazilians have maintained that concerns regarding these issues have become much more serious since January 2023, and that such violations have gravely undermined democracy, freedom, and the rule of law in Brazil. As chairman of the Global Human Rights Committee, I am committed to supporting internationally recognized human rights in Brazil and to conducting oversight on the response of the U.S. government to these violations. I will chair a hearing on human rights abuse in my subcommittee in the coming weeks. What I see in Brazil today, above all, in the investigations of the Supreme Court Justice de Moraes, is called rule by law, the opposite of rule of law. Rule of law is supposed to put aside law outside of politics so that the same laws apply equally to all people. Rule by law, in contrast, means that while some forms and procedures of law are maintained, the law is used selectively as an instrument of political power. There is vast evidence that this is exactly what is going on in Brazil today, where investigations, inquiries, media bans, content removal orders are used to single out the opposition to President Lula. I am preparing legislation that will address these issues. We will call it the Brazil Democracy, Freedom, and Human Rights Act, and I hope to be introducing it very shortly. We will hear now from Brazilians, including elected officials, that I believe their position and responsibilities as elected officials make them a truly valuable source of insight into the situation in Brazil and uniquely qualified to present the concerns of the people of Brazil. We will be joined, I believe, by Congressman Ronnie Jackson as well, who has expressed he's a Rear Admiral for 25 years of naval service, a member of Congress from the great state of Texas. He's in total solidarity with what we're doing today.